Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Safety Rocks. Remember our commitment to keep safe, part of the Are You Safe Too network. My name's Todd, your personal certified workplace safety specialist. And today, I want to touch on a couple of things before we get into a next part of this ship in a bottle or black pearl in a bottle is heat stress. And it's hot. This time of year, it's late June, almost July, and where I live, it's hot. We're talking between 92 and 100 in the shade. And oh my gosh, if you're working outside in that kind of environment, you got to be careful. Heat stress is one of those it's one of those accidents that can be prevented. And for many people, it's like, I'll just suck it up. I don't, it's not going to bother me. But in other people, it could be a factor, especially if health is concerned. So OSHA does address this. While there aren't any specific laws, federal laws in place, there are various state laws, like California, for instance. Now, I know, hold on. I got to get my coffee. I know that there are considerations and guidelines that OSHA is pointing out. And this isn't a channel to get into politics on that kind of stuff, but heat stress, heat related injuries are present enough that it has caught the eyes of OSHA. So it's one of their hot buttons. Yes, pun intended. And if you're new to this channel, welcome. I'm glad to have you here. I hope you're having a good day. If you're returning, then you know this is a channel where we share ideas in helping create safe workplaces and explore ideas for cost savings. And in an economic situation where budgets are really tight, cost savings is key. Like, for instance, the one episode we talked about your labor law poster. And that's an easy fix. Check the date, make sure it's revised according to the most recent federal and state changes. And heat stress is another one of those. It's a preventable accident. If you are aware of the certain situations, like the heat index, and then have a plan in place so that employees are educated, they're motivated, but they're also inspired to do the right thing. Use our training and watch out for each other. In fact, I've got over here, this is a poster, and it talks about the difference between heat exhaustion and heat stress, heat stroke, and the different signs, symptoms, as well as some solutions. And I'm going to go ahead and offer this as a free poster. You can email me if you know how to find my email address for the channel. Send me an email. Say, hey, Todd, I'd like to get a free poster for that heat stress thing, and I'll be happy to send one out to you for free. Just another way we're working together to share resources. So let's quickly look at one of the areas, and there are a few. I'll touch on these others in future episodes, but let me ask a question. Where you work, is it hot? It could be hot outside, or it could be inside in the work environment. Maybe you're a welder, or you're working at a foundry, or someplace where the ambient temperature and humidity are at such a point where you're just sweating profusely. Take that into consideration. The other recognizing factor that OSHA sees is that as a preventative workplace injury, it looks into and takes into account the employer's proactive and comprehensive measures that focus on preventing through proactive and comprehensive measures. Oh my gosh, how did I word this note? Okay, what OSHA looks at, even though there's not specific regulations or rules in place, they do factor in, does the employer have a hazard assessment? Do they have control measures in place? Is there training? And with that, is there documentation of that training that the employees have participated and signed off on? And then how is that communicated to the rest of the company? So as I said, some states have rules and regulations in place. From a federal standpoint, one of the areas they look at is the heat index. Okay, so here's a tip, and I'll go have a few of these. I'll put them in the comments in the description section, so if you want to follow along over this and the next few episodes, you can. So recognizing heat hazards, heat index, and I have my notes here. OSHA recommends using the heat index to assess the risk of heat-related illnesses. The heat index, it combines the air temperature and the humidity to determine the perceived temperature. What's the number they say? 80%? So if the heat index triggers around 80 degrees Fahrenheit, it should be noted, and employees should be advised that the temperature in the work area, whether it's a job site, outside, whether it's inside, that precautions need to be taken. So that's one of the triggers. It's easily found on weather channels, and the NIOSH recommended action involves the use of something called, and forgive me, a wet bulb globe temperature, WBGT. And OSHA has recommended, or NIOSH, the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, they have recommended limits on that. The other part is implementing control measures. And I'm going to start assembling some pieces before we get into the ship into the bottle. So implementing control measures, water, electrolytes, rest, frequent breaks, maybe more frequent than usual, and shade. So if you're emphasizing to employees the need to take preventative measures, it reduces the risk of an injury. Injuries create paperwork in the form of various OSHA logs or recordables. Plus, you have other fees like hospital bills and legal fees and fines and penalties. Let's avoid all that. Let's save money. Let's put your hard-earned profit back to your bottom line by looking at preventative measures. Something else to consider if you're looking at employees who are traveling and might not be acclimatized. For instance, someone who typically works in, let's say, Denver, in the Rocky Mountains, and then they have to travel to Phoenix, Arizona in the middle of summer. It may take their body a while to acclimate to the temperature of the work site. Same if an employee goes into a hot zone, for instance, indoors, a foundry, or steel workers and welding, where it may take some time to be acclimated. You can't just assume anymore these days. You take into consideration the factors such as the air temperature, the humidity. What is the policy of the company that addresses heat stress or heat-related injuries? All right. That's it for today. We're going to get on to the build because that is the fun part of this. You'll see we've got a couple of special extra guests. We've had our mermaid. She is joined by a skeleton, and then we have our esteemed colleague minifigure Mike Rowe, but he also has a director because Mike Rowe has a production team. Then we also have a special captain. If we're talking about heat, one area that's in the world that's pretty hot is the Caribbean or equatorial areas. So we have a trusty captain of his Black Pearl pirate ship. And what we're going to try to take right now is the Black Pearl. And I have to be very careful because, trust me, it's taken me a few episodes to get this right. We're going to place this into the bottle in such a way that, oh my gosh, it has to snap into these little pegs here. And trust me when I say this is a young man's game, a young person's game. Look at that. You hear that? It snapped. It fit. So we have our black sails. We have our Jolly Roger at the back. And I tell you, I'm pretty happy with the way that snapped in there. So now we're going to tip this on end and finish the rest of the bottle that surrounds this. So going back to heat stress, heat-related injuries, I will put something in the description that lists the various tips and tricks that you can apply in your own work environment. How cool is that? Now, I would love to live in a world where there are no accidents, where there are no injuries, where there is no need to fill out forms and documents that take up your day, where everybody can go home at the end of the day with all their parts and pieces intact. I'd like to live in that world. That's not the piece that goes there. This is the piece that goes there. Would you like to live in that world? I think it would be great to work in an environment that has millions of hours without a lost time incident. I've known several companies that have achieved that in their goals, their missions, their strategies, and they've celebrated that. So if your company is reaching that milestone, take a moment and thank those people for going above and beyond the norm, the normal call of duty. We have our side pieces. So if we turn this a little bit, this is the bottom. These are the sides. Now we're going to work on the top. Have you ever encountered a heat stress situation? I have. And that's one of the neat things about being a safety specialist is stories. We tell stories. We learn from stories. Human beings have sat around campfires and told stories for generations. I remember back in the day when it was Houston, Texas, and I was working at the Texas Renaissance Festival, and I thought I could handle the heat. You can't handle the heat. And pretty soon your hands start to get clammy. You don't sweat anymore. Your heart rate changes. All of a sudden, you're under a tree going, what the heck just happened? And your mates are gathered around you going, hey, you just kind of passed out there for a second. You okay? Yeah, I'm okay. Just thought I could handle it. And I've had friends who have gone to the hospital because of it. It is not a pretty sight when you have to have an IV for liquids put in And I, for one, am not a fan of needles or those kind of things. So take and measure. Take care. Keep hydrated. Water's good. Electrolytes help. And together we can use our training and watch out for each other. Which is a good thing. It's the right thing to do. So if I take a moment to put this at the top, it's going to have to slide underneath that. Oops. See, this is where we run into a problem with the mast. It's always the masts. Why is it always the masts? Why is the rum gone? Why is the rum always gone? Well, Todd, if you look carefully at the why and the how, you'll understand that that mast needs to be lifted up just a hair. It takes a steady hand. That's a different game altogether. Boy, talk about workplace safety and playing the game of operation. Oh, that'd be a fun activity. How do you celebrate safety? That's another question. And again, please feel free to comment below things that you've found helpful and things that your company has done to recognize safety. One company I worked with had a year-long program to reduce accidents, increase production, but also morale. And they called it FAST, F-A-S-T. And that stood for Focus on Accuracy, Safety, and Teamwork. And the problem that they had was that the front office or admin, where orders would come in or customer requests would come in, weren't always communicating to the production, and errors occurred. Well, a way to reduce those errors, increase your production percentages, is to communicate. So this focus was a year-long effort, focusing on accuracy. Again, as a business, safety isn't always first. They say it is, safety first, because that's easy to say. But as a business, profits first. Come on, let's be honest. Then you have quality. And then there in the top 3 is safety. Now, some people may disagree with me on that, and that's okay. Everybody has an opinion, and I'm not going to argue. But in this particular business, they recognized that everybody had a say. And for them to be productive, for the company to be profitable, they had to work together. They had to focus on accuracy. They had to increase communication. And in doing so, do you know what happened? I don't even know if you can see the top of this. I'm going to have to move this closer. My gosh, half of this episode is in the dark because you're going, I just see the bottom of the bottle. The bottom of the bottle. Sorry. That's funny. We have now completed a big percentage of that ship in the bottle, black pearl in a bottle. So now it's time to add some water. This is, again, if you're an ASMR person, you're going to love this. Maybe this will send, what they say, tingles. And of course, pieces go all over the floor. sure enough, how many of these very translucent blue pieces escaped? I'm going to step on them, or my vacuum's going to run over them. So we are going to bump the tripod. We're going to give this a little shake. And that will simulate the ocean blue as we prepare for the next part, which is the part of the bottle that rises up here. Now I'm going to take this and attach that here. There are 4 of these. And I know some of you are wondering, Todd, you talk about safety and you're building Lego. Why don't you just focus on one or the other? Well, that's a very good point. And I may make some changes to the channel because nobody wants to hear a 55-year-old guy ramble on about safety. Stuff they already know. Todd, we know this stuff. We know the safety stuff. Just focus on Lego. And that's okay too. So if you see where we have the semblance of a bottle with little blue pieces representing water, we're now going to set this aside. Sorry, Mike and director and captain and mermaid, we're going to set you off to the side over here, and we're going to move this out of the way so that we can make room for the bottleneck. Is that a good term? Starting with some music would be really good right about now. Let's see if we can play a little something from our friend Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Well, friends, so far we are up to step number 73 in this Lego build, Black Pearl in a Bottle. And we've built the Black Pearl, we've built the bottle, and of course there's going to be fingerprints all over it. But at this point, I'm just tickled pink. I am over the moon. I am chuffed to have had this go to this point. We're going to take a stop here. Thank you very much for listening to me ramble about safety. And to be honest, the Lego part of it is a lot more enjoyable. So again, I'm going to put all this into consideration. 10th episode. Thank you for watching. Tune in again for another exciting episode of safety rants, sharing ideas, a little Lego, or maybe a lot of Lego. Have a great day. And remember, we are in this together, using our training and watching out for each other. That's how we're going to save the world, one accident at a time. My name's Todd, your personal workplace safety philosopher. Have a wonderful day.